Okay, greetings one and all, and welcome to this math lesson. In this lesson, we'll be considering transposition and substitution problems. Again, transposition and substitution problems. Okay, let's begin. So the first question says, the formula D equals V plus U, all of that quantity, times T, all divided by 2 is particularly useful in the study of physics. Transpose the formula to make V the subject. So when we're looking at transposition, we're looking at trying to make a particular variable the subject of the equation. And so when they ask us to make it the subject of the equation, what they're basically is saying is that you see where D is? Do you see where D is? That is where we want V to be. So we want, currently D is the subject of this equation, but what we want is we want V to be right here. So we want V to be right here and everything else on the other side. But we have to use the laws of algebra to make sure that we get V on the left-hand side and everything else on the right-hand side. So the first thing we have to do is we have to take T and we have to multiply it by the variables that are inside. We call that distribution. So what we're going to do is we're going to say T multiplied by V. And we're also going to say T multiplied by U. And so what do we get? When we multiply T by V, we get VT. And we multiply T by U, we get UT. All right? All divided by 2, and we have that down. And this D, we just put it over 1. And the reason why we put the D over 1 is because we are preparing to do cross multiplication. And so the 2 is going to be multiplied by the D, and the 1 is going to be multiplied by the VT plus EUT. All right, so here we're going to cross multiply, and that's why we put the D over 1. Now, D over 1 is the same thing as D because any number or any quantity divided by 1 is the quantity itself. So D over 1 is the same thing as D. That's no problem. We can do that. Okay, 2 times D is 2D, right? And then 1 times this quantity, so 1 times VT plus UT. And if we do 1 times VT plus UT, that's the same thing, VT plus UT, because a quantity times 1 is the quantity itself, all right? So 2 times 1 is 2, 3 times 1 is 3, and so on. So 1 times VT plus UT is the same thing as saying VT plus UT, they're equal. So, okay, so now we have 2D equals to VT plus UT. Remember, the goal is to make V the subject, all right? So we're gonna take this this term and we're gonna send it over the equal sign, all right? So that's what we have to do. Let me just put the arrow. So let me get the arrow here. So we're gonna take UT and we're gonna send it over the equal sign, all right? So UT is gonna go over the equal sign like that. So we have the next line is going to be 2D minus UT because it was positive UT. Now, when we send it over the equal sign, it's going to be negative UT because the signs change when you send a term over the equal sign. So we have VT equals to 2D minus UT. And so what we're going to do now is we have to divide both sides by T because we want V on this side, right? We want V all by itself. We want to isolate V. So that means that we have to divide both we have to divide both sides by T, all right? And so if we divide this term by T, it's going to be, these two are going to cancel out, leaving us with just what? V equals to 2D minus UT all over T, all right? Now, I'm just going to switch the sides. And so that means that V is going to be equal to 2D minus UT over T. And that's how we do it. Notice that now a person may ask, why did I switch signs? Or why did I switch sides, right? The reason why I switch sides is that so that V could be on the left-hand side and this quantity could be on the right. We already know that V is equal to this, all right? So switching sides doesn't change what the statement is saying. It's still saying that V is equal to 2D minus UT over T, and that's perfectly fine. And so the answer here is that if we want V as the subject of this equation, V is going to be equal to 2D minus UT all over T. Let's move on to the next question. It says, for the formula S equals to the square root of W minus 10E all over M, determine the value of S when W equals to 50, E equals to 13, and M equals to 5. So this one right here is a substitution problem. Remember, we are doing transposition and substitution. Transposition deals with rearranging the formula or rearranging the equation, and substitution deals with replacing the variable with a number. And so we have this formula or this equation, x equals to the square root of w minus 10e all over m. And so notice that here w is equal to 450, e is equal to 13, and m is equal to 5. So wherever we see w, we're going to put 450. Wherever we see e, we're going to put 13. And wherever we see m, we're going to put 5. And so what that means is that w is equal to 450, e is equal to 13, and m is equal to 5. What is 10 times 13? Well, 10 times 13 is definitely 130, all right? And so we have 450 minus 130, all divided by 5. Let's not forget the square root. And so what we're going to do is we're going to deal with the things that are in the square root first. So we say 450 minus 130, and 450 minus 130 is definitely 320. And so on top here, we're going to have 320, and we keep the 5 here. But we have to divide it. So 320 divided by 5. What is 320 divided by 5? That's going to be equal to 64. And so now we have that s is equal to the square root of 64. Now, what is the square root of 64? In other words, what times itself, what number times itself is going to give you 64? And the answer is 8, because 8 times 8 is 64. So that means that the square root of 64 is 8. And so the value of s when w equals to 450, e equals to 13, and m equals to 5, the value of s, when that's the case, is 8. All right, let's move on to the next question. It says, this is 12b. For the formula s equals to the square root of w minus 10e all over m, make e the subject of the formula. So here we're going to do transposition. So this is a transposition question. We are going to rearrange the formula to make e the subject of the formula, which means that, do you see where s is? That's where we want e. We want e to be on the left-hand side and everything else is on the right-hand side. And so what we need to do is we need to isolate e. We need e to be by itself. And so what we need to do is we need to send everything that's a part of everything that's connected to e, we need to send it over the other side so that e could be isolated. But notice that we have the square root. We have to get rid of the square root. How are we going to get rid of the square root? By doing the opposite of the square root, which is squaring, right? So we're going to square both sides of the equation because we want to get rid of the square root. In order to get rid of the square root, we have to square both sides. And so we have s squared, and then we have this quantity squared. And if we square this quantity, the square root and the square is going to cancel out each other, leaving us with just s squared is equal to w minus 10e all over m. S squared equals to w minus 10e all over m. The next thing that we're going to do here is, it would be good if we could cross multiply. And so I'm going to put s squared over 1, right? And the reason why I put it over 1 is so that we could be able to cross multiply. It prepares us to cross multiply. And s squared is the same thing as s squared over 1, because a quantity divided by 1 is the quantity itself. For example, 2 over 1 is still 2. 3 over 1 is still 3. And so s squared over 1 equals to w minus 10e all over m. We're going to cross multiply. So s squared is going to be multiplied by m, these two. And then 1 is going to be multiplied by w minus 10e. Now, m times s squared is ms squared. And then 1 times w minus 10e is right here. But what is 1 times w minus 10e? Well, it's w minus 10e, because the quantity multiplied by 1 is the quantity itself. Remember, our goal is to isolate e. We want e to be by itself. But the problem is we have w on this side. We need to send the w over the equal sign. And so that means that we're going to have m squared minus w. The reason why it's minus w is because we took this variable and we sent it over the equal sign, and it was a positive, and when we send it over, it becomes a negative. So m s squared minus w equals to negative 10e. And so we need to get rid of this negative 10e because that's the only thing that's on the side of e, but we want e to be by itself. So we need to get rid of this negative 10. Negative 10 is multiplied to e, so we're going to do the opposite of that, which is division. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 10. And what happens is that when we divide this side by -10, these -10s are going to cancel out each other, leaving us with E is equal to ms squared minus W all over -10E. We switch the sides, and so we have that E equals to ms squared minus W all over -10E. And here we have E as the subject of the equation, and that's how we do it. Moving right along, we have this question. It says, if x is equal to 3, y equals to 5, and z equals to 9, find the value of 6x squared minus 9y all over z. And so this is a substitution problem. What we have to do is we have to look at our algebraic expression, and wherever we see x, we're going to put 3. Wherever we see y, we're going to put -5. And wherever we see z, we're going to put 9. All right? So let's replace or let's substitute. So remember, x is 3, right? Y is -5, so we put that there. And z is 9. All right, so the first thing we're going to do here, we notice that we have 3 squared. Well, what is 3 squared? 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. And so now we have 6 times 9 minus 9 times -5. So 6 times 9, right? 6 times 9 minus 9, open bracket, -5, or minus 9 times -5. And so that's going to be 99. So if you put in the calculator 6 times 9 minus 9 times -5, that's going to give you 99 all over 9. The 9 stays. So again, 6 times 9 minus 9 times -5. It's going to be equal to 99. And if we do 99 divided by 9, well, 99 divided by 9 is just 11. And so the answer is 11. Moving on to the next question, it says, for the formula A equals to P, open bracket, 1 plus RT, calculate the value of A when P equals to 1,200, R equals to 0.075, and T equals to 3. So here, this is a substitution problem. So wherever you see P, you're going to put 1,200. Wherever you see R, you're going to put 0.075. And wherever you see T, you're going to put 3. All right. So that's what you need to do. Replace or substitute these values. So let's go ahead and do that. So we know that P equals to 1,200. We know that R equals to 0.075. And we know that T equals to 3. Now let's multiply. What is 0.075 multiplied by 3? So 0.075 multiplied by 3 is going to be 0.225. And so that's what we did here. We multiply 0.075 times 3. We multiply those numbers and we get 0.225. Now what we're going to do, we're going to deal with the brackets, all right? Whatever's in parentheses. So we have to add them. 1 plus 0.225 is going to be 1.225. We just add the 1. Now here we have multiplication because they are side by side. They're adjacent to each other. So that implies that we're going to multiply them. So we're going to multiply 1,200 by 1.225. And our answer is 1,470. So that's how we get the value of A when P equals to 1,200, R equals to 0.075, and T equals to 3. So this is a substitution problem. Next, we have a transposition problem. Is it? No, we still have to, well, it's a little bit of both, but what they still want us to do is they still want us to substitute. But we have to find the value of P, right? So we have to substitute and still rearrange the formula a little bit. And so we have A equals to 2,100, R equals to 0.08, and T equals to 5. So wherever we see A, we're going to put 2,100. Wherever we see R, we're going to put 0.05. Sorry, wherever we see R, we're going to put 0.08. And wherever we see T, we're going to put 5. And so let's do the replacing. Remember, A is equal to 2,100. Okay. R is equal to 0.08. Okay. And T is equal to 5. All right. So all we did is replace A with 2,100, R with 0.08, and T with 5. Now let's multiply. Let's multiply 0.08 by 5, and that's going to give us 0.4. Now we're going to add 1 plus 0.4, and that's just going to be 1.4. And so we have P multiplied by 1.4 equals to 2,100. Remember, we want to isolate P. We want to figure what is the value of P. So we're going to divide both sides by 1.4 because we want to get rid of this 1.4. They are connected above here by multiplication. So we have to do the opposite of that, which is division. So we're going to cancel out. These two cancel out. And so we are left with P is equal to 2,100 divided by 1.4. So what is 2,100 divided by 1.4? Well, that is exactly 1,500. So that means that P equals to 1,500. Moving right along, let's have another question. It says, make T the subject of the formula. So this is a transposition question. So we have the formula A equals to P, open bracket, 1 plus RT. And we want this T to be the subject of the equation. We want this T to be the subject of the formula. So we want wherever A is, that's where we want T, because currently A is the subject of this formula, because A is on the left-hand side and everything else is on the right-hand side. So A is isolated. And so that means that A is the subject of this equation or this formula currently. But what we want is we want T to be the subject of this formula. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rearrange this equation. The first thing that we need to do is we need to multiply P by 1, and we need to multiply P by RT. So we need to distribute. So, well, when we distribute, okay, let me show the distribution. So when we distribute, what we have? We have P multiplied by 1, which gives us P, and we have P multiplied by RT, which gives us PRT. Okay, so let me revise that. So what we did, we multiply P by 1 to get P. We multiply P by RT to get PRT. Next, what we're gonna do, we're gonna send the P over the equal sign. So it was a positive P. When we send it over, it becomes a negative P. So it's gonna be A minus P. And so we have A minus P equals to PRT. What we're gonna do, we're gonna divide on this side and on this side. But what are we gonna divide by? Remember, we want to make T the subject. So we need to get rid of the P and we need to get rid of the R. So that means that we're gonna divide both sides by PR because we want to get rid of this PR. We need the T to stay, all right? And so we divide both sides by PR. Again, the reason why we divide both sides by PR is because we want T to remain. We don't want the P and we don't want the R to be on this side of the equation, on the right side. So what we have left? Well, we have these two cancel out, so we just left with T on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, we have A minus P all over PR. So that means that T equals to A minus P divided by PR. And if we just switch it, we have that T equals to A minus P divided by PR. And so that's the subject. That is what T is when T is the subject of the formula. Moving right along, we have this question. It says the time period T for the simple pendulum is given by the formula T equals to 2 pi times the square root of L over G. All right. And so they say find the value of T when G equals to 10, L equals to 4.9, and pi equals to 22 over 7. And so this is a substitution problem. What we want to do is wherever we see pi, we're going to put the fraction 22 over 7. Wherever we see L, we're going to put 4.9. And wherever we see 10, wherever we see G, we're going to put 10. And so let's substitute. Remember, wherever we see pi, we put 22 over 7. Wherever we see L, we're going to put 4.9. And wherever we see G, we're going to put 10. Okay, now what we can do, we can divide. So 4.9 divided by 10. What is 4.9 divided by 10? Well, 4.9 divided by 10 is 0.49. And so that's how we get 0.49. We divided 4.9 by 10. Now let's multiply. Well, 2 multiplied by 22. 2 multiplied by 22 is going to be 44, and we keep the denominator, which is 7. And so now we have T equals to 44 over 7 multiplied by the square root of 0.49. And what are we going to do? Let's take the square root of 0.49. What is the square root of 0.49? Now, you have to do it in your calculator, and you will get the answer of 0.7. So the square root of 0.49 is 0.7. And notice that these two, because they are connected to each other, they're so close, that means that we have to multiply them. So that's why we have this operation multiplication, the sign. And so we have 44 over 7 multiplied by 0.7. Now, if we multiply 44 by 0.7, so 44 multiplied by 0.7 is going to be 30.08. And so we have, and so we keep the denominator. So we have 30.08 divided by 7. And what is 30.08 divided by 7? That's going to be 4.4. And so that means that T equals to 4.4 when G is 10, L is 4.9, and pi is equal to 22 over 7. Sometimes they have pi as 22 over 7. Sometimes they may have pi as 3.14. And so you have to get accustomed to seeing pi written in terms of its different approximations. So you might see it as 3.142, 3.14, or even 22 over 7. This is just another approximation for pi. Okay, let's move on to 7b. It says rearrange the formula to make L the subject of the formula. So notice here that T is currently the subject of the formula, but we want L to be the subject of the formula, meaning that we want L on the left-hand side and everything else on the right-hand side. We want L to be isolated. All right. So what are we going to do here? Well, we have 2 pi multiplied by the square root of L over G. Our goal is to isolate L, make L all by itself. So what we're going to do is, notice carefully, this is very important. We're going to notice that this is, we have 2 pi on this side. We have 2 pi on the right-hand side. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by 1 over 2 pi. Now, the reason why we're multiplying by 1 over 2 pi is because we want to get rid of this 2 pi. How are we going to get rid of this 2 pi? Well, the way to get rid of this 2 pi is by multiplying by 1 over 2 pi. It's opposite, okay? So in order to get rid of the 2 pi, we need to multiply by 1 over 2 pi, the opposite of 2 pi, okay? And so what we're going to do is, once we multiply by the opposite, then we can cancel out, all right? And so now these two, the 2 pi here and the 2 pi here can cancel out each other, leaving us with just 1 times the square root of L over G. So that's just going to be the square root of L over G, because 1 times a quantity is the quantity itself. And so we are left with 2. Oh, by the way, on this side, we have to multiply by 1 over 2 pi, because whatever you do on the right-hand side, you must do on the left-hand side. And so because we multiply by 1 over 2 pi, we had to do it on this side as well. And so we do 1 times t, which is going to be t. And so we have 2 over 2 pi. Sorry, we have t over 2 pi. And so we have t over 2 pi equals to the square root of L over G. Notice that we have a square root, and we want to get rid of the square root. In order to get rid of the square root, or in order to, cancel it out, we need to square both sides, because the square which is the opposite of the square root, is going to cancel it. It's going to cancel it out. So let's cancel them. So what happens? So this square, all right, so this square cancel out with the square root. And so we are left with just L over G, all right? And so on the other side, we square both sides. So we square this quantity and we square this quantity, but these two cancel out each other. So we just left with L over G. Remember that we want to make L the subject of the formula. So we have to get rid of G. In order to get rid of G, we have to multiply both sides by G. And the reason why we would want to do this is because we want to cancel out the G's, all right? And so if we multiply both sides by G, what will happen is this G and that G will cancel out each other. And so we'll just left with L equals to G times the square root, L equals to G times T over pi all squared. And so let's switch sides. So L is equal to G times so L is going to be equal to G times T over 2 pi all squared. And so that's our final answer for G. Okay, moving right along, let's go on to the next question. It says, use the formula Q equals to 3t squared minus 5th to find the value and to calculate the value of Q. So use the formula. Sorry, let's start again. Here we have this question. It says, use the formula Q equals to 3t squared minus 5th to calculate the value of Q when t equals to 7 and h equals to 6. So the idea here is that this is a substitution problem. So wherever we see wherever we see t, we're going to put 7. Wherever we see h, we're going to put 6. And so notice that we have t here, so we're going to put 7. And notice that we have t here, so we're going to put 7. And notice that we have h here, so we're going to put 6. And so we have 3, open bracket. Sorry, we have 3 times 7 squared minus 5 times 7 times 6. Now, what is 7 squared? 7 squared is definitely 49. And so we're going to multiply 3 times 49. What is 3 times 49? 3 times 49 is 147. Okay, that's how we get this. 3 times 49 is 147. And then we're going to say 147 minus 5 times 7 times 6. And the answer there is negative 63. Negative 63. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says, calculate the value of h when q equals to 332 and t is equal to 16. So we need to find the value of h. So this is a substitution as well as a transposition question. So first, let's substitute. Remember, wherever we see q, we're going to put 332. Wherever we see t, we're going to put 16. So we have t here, which is 16, and we have t here, which is 16. We want to find the value of h. H is the only variable. Okay, let's multiply. What is 3 times 16 squared? So 3 times 16 squared is going to be 768. 768. How do we do that? First, let's do 16 squared. What is 16 squared? 16 squared is 256. That's 16 times 16. And then we multiply that by 3, which is going to be 768. Minus, what is 5 times 16? 5 times 16 is 80. So we have negative 80h. Next, we're going to take the 768 and send it over the equal sign. When we do that, we have 332 minus 768 equals to negative 80h. Now, it was positive on this side. When we send it over the equal sign, it becomes negative. So that's why we have the negative here. Equals to negative 80h. We're going to divide both sides by 80 to get rid of that 80. And those two 80s are going to cancel out. What we did here, we also subtracted. So 332 minus 768 is going to be negative 436. We divide both sides by negative 80 so as to isolate the h on the left-hand side. And so we have negative 436 divided by 80. And what is that? 436 divided by 80. That's going to be 5 point, when we divide both sides, so we have h is equal to negative 436 divided by 80. Notice that these two negative 80s cancel out each other. And so the answer is going to be, when you divide negative 436 by negative 80, the answer is positive 5.45. The answer is positive 5.45. Okay, so the answer is h is equal to positive 5.45. All right, moving right along, we have a next question. It says, q is equal to 3t squared minus 5th. Make h the subject of the formula. Make h the subject of the formula. Okay, so let's begin. So what we have here, we have q is equal to 3t squared minus 5th. We want to make h the subject of the formula. So notice here that q is the subject of the formula, but we want h to be where q is, right? And so we have to isolate h. We have to separate h. We have to make h by itself. And so the first thing that I would do is send the 3t squared over the equal sign because we want h to be by itself. So let's send that over. Now, when we send it over, let me show the arrow of sending it over. So what we did was we send the 3t squared over the equal sign. We send that over. Now, when we send it over, it becomes on the left-hand side, q minus 3t squared. Q minus 3t squared equals to negative 5th, all right? Q minus 3t squared equals to negative 5th. Now what we're going to do, we're going to divide both sides by, notice on this side, right? On this side, we only want h to be here. So we need to get rid of the negative 5 and we need to get rid of the t. How are we going to do that? Divide both sides by negative 5t. Because that's what we want to get rid of, the negative 5 and the t, so that the h can be by itself. And so we divide both sides by negative 5t. We cancel, and so that means that h is going to be equal to q minus 3t squared all over negative 5t. We switch sides, so h is going to be equal to q minus 3t squared all over negative 5t. Again, h equals to q minus 3t squared all over 5t. And so here we've made h the subject of this equation. Moving right along, we have our next question. It says, the electric current A delivered by battery cells is given by the formula A equals to N times E all over R plus NR. Calculate the value of A when N equals to 4, E equals to 2, R equals to 12, and capital R equals to 12, and small r equals to 0.2. Giving your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So here, this is a substitution problem. We need to, wherever we see N, we need to put 4. Wherever we see capital E, we're going to need to put 2. Wherever we see capital R, we need to put 12. And wherever we see small r, we need to put 0.2. And so let's do that. Here, we know that small n is 4. Capital E is 2. Capital R is 12. And then we have small n is 4. And then we have small r is 0.2. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply, because when you see them close to each other, that means multiplication. So we have 4 times 12. What is 4 times 12? Well, 4 times 12, sorry, not 12. 4 times 2. What is 4 times 2? Well, 4 times 2 is 8. And so here we're going to have 8 all over 12. That's this portion. Now, what is 4 times 0.2? 4 times 0.2 is definitely 0.8. And so here we have 8 over 12 plus 0.8 when we use our calculator to add them. So we have 8 over 12, right? 8 over 12 plus 0.8. When we use our calculator to add them, we get A is equal to 1.46666666, and continuing on. But they say write our answer correct to 2 decimal places. Correct to 2 decimal places. So that means that what we have to do is we have to go and we have to circle this 6, because this is one number after the decimal point, that's 4. And then the second number after the decimal point is going to be 6. So let's circle that. So we circled 6, and then we underline this next 6. Now this 6 right there that I underline, is that greater than 5? Yeah, of course it is. So since it's greater than 5, we're going to round up. So we have to add 1. Add 1 to that 6. And so we have A is equal to 1.4, not 6, but 1.47, because we added 1 to this 6. So it's going to be A is equal to 1.47, and that's correct to 2 decimal places. Moving right along, we have question number 9b. It says, calculate the value of n when A is equal to 3.5, E is equal to, capital E is equal to 3, capital R is equal to 10, and small r is equal to 0.4. So we want the value of n, all right? So what we're going to do, let's substitute. Notice that A is 3.5, n is, well, we don't have n, that's what we're trying to figure out. E is 3, capital E is 3, capital R is 10, all right? We do not have the value for n, that's what we're trying to make the subject. And R, small r, we have 0.4. Okay, so let's multiply. 3 times n is going to be what? 3n. And n times 0.4 is going to be 0.4n. Now we must divide. What is 3 divided by 10? Well, 3 divided by 10 is 0.3. So we have 0.3n plus 0.4n. We just got to add them too. What is 0.3 plus 0.4? But that's going to be 0.7 n. And so we have 3.5 equals to 0.7 n. Remember, we want to find the value of n. So we have to divide both sides by 0.7 because we want to get rid of the 0.7 and it's connected to n by multiplication. We have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And so we divide both sides by 0.7. So we can cancel out the 0.7. And so we are left with n is equal to 3.5 divided by 0.7. And what is that? What is 3.5 divided by 0.7? The answer is 5. So n is equal to 5. And that is the value of n when a equals to 3.5, capital E is equal to 3, capital R is equal to 10, and small r equals to 0.5. Okay, moving right along, let's go on to question 14. It says the formula for the cost of electricity per month be in dollars for the use of E kilowatt hours of electricity is B equals to 40 plus 7 times E all over 50. Calculate the monthly bill, which is B, when 705 kilowatt hours are used. And so E, remember, E is kilowatt hours. So that means that wherever we see E, which is kilowatt hours, we're going to put 705 because that's the kilowatt hours that are used. So replacing E with 705, that's what we have to do. So we have B is equal to 40 plus 7 times 0. Sorry, B is equal to 40 plus 7 times 705 all over 50. Let's multiply 7 times 0. Let's multiply 7 times 705. And that's going to be 4,935 all over 50 plus 40 equals to B. Let's divide this some more. What is 4,935 divided by 50? That's going to be 98.7. So now we have B is equal to 40 plus 98.7. And when we add those two together, 98.7 plus 40 is going to be equal to 138.70. And so his monthly bill, right, when 705 kilowatt hours are used, it's going to be $138.70 because we are dealing with cents. All right, let's move. Because we are dealing with dollars and cents. And so let's move on to the next question. It says, calculate the number of kilowatt hours used. That's E, right? E is the number of kilowatt hours used. So basically, calculate the number of kilowatt hours used when the monthly bill is $61.14. So we know that the monthly bill, which is B, right? The monthly bill is $61.14. So we replace B with 61.14. And then we have that 61.14 equals to 40 plus 7E all over 50. The first thing we want to do is send the 40 over because we're trying to isolate E. So let's send the 40 over. It was a positive 40. When we send it over the equal sign, it becomes a negative 40. And so we have 61.14 minus 40. Let's subtract. So we have, when we have 61.14 minus 40, that's going to be 21.14. And that's 21.14 equals to 7E all over 50. Let's put, what we could do, we could have cross multiplied, like put 21.14 over 1 and then cross multiply, or we could multiply both sides by 50. The reason why we multiply both sides by 50 is because we want to get rid of this denominator, which is 50. And so we multiply both sides by 50. And so these two sides will cancel each other, leaving us with just 7E equals to 50 times 21.14. When you multiply 50 times 21.14, you get 1,057. So 7E is equal to 1,057. We divide both sides by 7 to get rid of that 7 so that all we have is E on the other side. We cancel out the 7s. And so we're left with E is equal to 1,507 divided by 7 is going to be 51. Again, 1,057 divided by 7 is 151. So E is equal to 151. That means that if the bill is $61.14, that means the amount of kilowatt hours that are used is 151. kilowatt hours. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says, make E the subject of the formula. Currently, B is the subject of the formula, but we want E to be the subject of the formula. So the first thing we're going to do is send that 40 over the equal sign. So now it's B minus 40 equals to 7E all over 50. What we can do here is we can multiply both sides by 50, or we could cross multiply. And so if you multiply both sides by 50, we have 50 times B minus 40 and 7E all over 50. We multiply both sides and we could cancel, all right? Canceling, we have 7E, we just left with 70 on this side, is equal to 50 times B minus 40. What we could do, because we want E by itself, we could divide both sides by 7. Dividing both sides by 7. 7, the 7s on this side would cancel with each other, leaving us just with E on this side. So E is going to be equal to 50 times B minus 40 all over 7. And we switch it around, so E is equal to 50 times B minus 40 all over 7. And so that's the value of E when E is the subject. All right, that's E written as the subject of the formula. Okay, let's move on to the next question. We have in-house construction. In-house construction, the safe load, M kilograms, can be supported by a beam with length X meters, thickness T centimeters, and height 8 centimeters, is given by the formula M equals to 4TH squared all over X. Calculate M when T is equal to 4.5, H is equal to 10, and X is equal to 3.6. And so we want to figure what is the value of M when T is 4.5, H is 10, and X is 3.6. And so what we have to do here is we have to substitute. Notice that wherever we see T, we're going to put 4.5. Wherever we see H, we're going to put 10. Wherever we see X, we're going to put 3.6. And so notice that T is 4.5, H is 10, and X is 3.6. What we have to do, we have to multiply. Let's multiply the top, and then we can divide. So 4, right? 4 multiplied by 4.5 multiplied by 10 squared. Now 10 squared is 10 times 10, which is 100. That gives you 1,800. And so now we divide 1,800 divided by 3.6. So let's divide that. That's going to be 500. And so the answer is M is 500. Moving right along, we have this next question. It says, calculate H when M is 588, T is equal to 10, and X is equal to 4.8. We want to figure what is the value of H when M is equal to when M is equal to 588, T is equal to 10, and X is equal to 4.8. What is the value of H? Well, we have to substitute. So wherever we see M, we put 588. Wherever we see T, we're going to put 10. Wherever we see X, we put 4.8. So M is equal to 588. T is equal to 10. And X is equal to 4.8. At this point, we're going to cross multiply. I didn't cross multiply, but it would be very good if I had cross multiply. It would have been very good if I had cross multiply. I didn't cross multiply, but let me show you. What we could have done is we could have put the 588 over 1, all right? And then we could have cross multiply like this, all right? And so that would have been a very good way to do it. So you multiply 4.8 by 588 and multiply 1 by 48 squared. That would be a good way to do it as well. But here I didn't cross multiply, which I wish I did. It just would have been easy in my opinion. But what I did was I multiplied both sides by 4.8 divided by 40. Okay, what I basically did is I noticed that 40 is on top and 4.8 is at the bottom. So I multiply by the opposite. So I multiply by 4.8 over 40. So the reason why I did that is because I want to cancel out this 4.8 with that 4.8. And I wanted to cancel out this 40 with that 40. All right, and so that'll leave us with 8 squared is equal to 4.8 over 40 multiplied by 588. And so we can multiply. What is 4.8 times 588? Well, 4.8 times 588 is going to be equal to 2,822.4 all over 40. And so that's what we have. But we want to figure out the value of H. All right, and so what we have to do is we have to let's divide. So 2,822.4 divided by 40 is going to be equal to 70.56. And so we have to take the square root of both sides because we don't want 8 squared, we want 8. And so the square root of both sides, we know that the square root and the square will cancel out each other. So let me show that. So the square root and the square, they cancel out each other, leaving us with just, I'm sure that properly. So the square root and the square cancel out each other. So the square root and the square cancel out each other. And so we are left with h is equal to the square root of 70.56. And what is the square root of 70.56? Well, the square root of 70.56 is 8.4. And so h is equal to 8.4. So the value of h when m is equal to 588, t is equal to 10, and x is equal to 4.8 is 8.4. Moving right along, we have a next question. It says, rearrange the formula to make t the subject. So we want t to be isolated. So we want t on one side and everything else on the other side. And so what can we do? Well, I did the same thing. I really wish I had cross multiply. It would have been so much easier. I have m is equal to 4th. Sorry, m is equal to 4th. M is equal to 4t8 squared all over x. What we can do is we notice that 4t is on the top and x is at the bottom. So I want to get rid of the 4t and I want to get rid of the x. And so I need to multiply by the opposites. So what that means that I'm going to multiply by x on top and 4. Wait. I want t to be the subject. I'm sorry. Let me explain it over. I want t to be the subject. So I'm going to multiply by 4. I'm going to try to get rid of the 4. I'm going to try to get rid of the 8 squared. I'm also going to try to get rid of the x, but I want to make sure I leave the t. And so how am I going to do that? Well, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to multiply both sides by x over 4h squared. Why would I do that? Because I want to get rid of the x, so that's why I put the x here. I want to get rid of the 4, so I put the 4 at the bottom. And I want to get rid of the 8 squared, so I put the 8 squared at the bottom. Notice I don't touch the t. So what does that do? Well, the x's, okay, I didn't show it, but did I show it? Okay, I showed it on the next step. So the 4 and the 4, right? So the 4 and the 4 will cancel out. And the 8 squared and the 8 squared is going to cancel out. Also, the x and the x is also going to cancel out. And so we are left with just t is equal to x over 4h squared times m. Notice that whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side, okay? And so we have t is equal to x over 4h squared times m. And what is x over 4h squared times m? We just multiply the x and the m. That gives us xm all over 4h squared equals to t. And so that means that t is equal to xm all over 4th. And so that's what we do. What did we do? We multiply by the opposite of this thing, all right? So we have 4 at the top, we put 4 at the bottom. We have h squared at the top, we put h squared at the bottom. We have x at the bottom, we put x at the top. And so now that we have this quantity, we have to multiply by this quantity on the right, and whatever we do to the right, we must do to the left. Whatever we do on one side, we have to do it on the other side. After we cancel out then the 4 with the 4, the 8 squared with the 8 squared, the x with the x, we are just left with t on this side. And so we multiply the rest of our terms here, and that's how we get the value of t. Moving right along, we have, for the formula, a is equal to 2s squared plus 4sh. Find the value of a when s is equal to 7 and h is equal to 9. For this one, we know that s is equal to 7 and h is equal to 9. So we're going to, wherever we see s, we're going to put 7. And wherever we see h, we're going to put 9. So s is 7, h is 9. What is 7 times 7 or 7 squared? It's going to be 49. So we have to do 2 times the square root of 7. Not the square root, sorry, 2 times 7 squared. And 2 times 7 squared is going to be 98 because 7 squared is 49, and 49 times 2 is 98. And so on the other side, we have 4 times 7 times 9. Let's multiply that. 4 times 7 times 9. And that's going to give you 252. And so let's add these. So we have 98 plus 252. And that's going to be equal to 350. All right, 350. So A, when S is equal to 7 and H is equal to 9, is 350. Moving right along, let's go on to the next question. We have for the formula, A is equal to 2S squared plus 4SH. Find the value of H when A is equal to 902 and S is equal to 11. So let's substitute. So notice that A is equal to 902 and S is equal to 11 squared. So wherever we see A, we're going to put 902. Wherever we see S, we're going to put 11. So S is there. What is 2 times 11 squared? Well, 2 times 11 squared, 2 times 11 squared is 242, because 11 times 11 is 121. And when you multiply 121 by 2, you get 242. And so what we're going to do here is also multiply 4 times 11. And 4 times 11 is 44. Let's send the 242 over the equal sign. And so we are left with 902 minus 242, because it was positive here. When we send it over, it becomes a negative. Now we do 902 minus 242. What is that? 902 minus 242. The answer is 660. We divide both sides by 44. Okay, because we want to get rid of the 8. Sorry, we want to get rid of the 44 and leave the H. We want H to be isolated. And so we cancel out both sides. Sorry, we cancel top and bottom by 40. We cancel the 44s. And so that means that H is going to be equal to 660 divided by 44. And so that means that H is going to be equal to 15. 660 divided by 44 is 15. And so that's the value of H. All right, moving right along, we have this next question. It says a formula for velocity is V is equal to the square root of 2AS plus a U squared. Find the value of V when A is equal to 4.4. Sorry, when A is equal to 4.5, S is equal to 40, and U is equal to 9. So what are we going to do? Wherever we see A, we're going to put 4.5. Wherever we see S, we're going to put 40. And wherever we see U, we're going to put 9. So A here is equal to 4.5. S here is going to be equal to 40. And U is going to be equal to 9. All right. What is 2 times 4.4? Sorry, what is 2 times 4.5 times 40? What is that? 2 times 4.5 times 40 is going to be equal to 360. And we know that 9 squared, which is 9 times 9, is going to be 81. So 9 squared is 81. So we do 360 plus 81. We're doing what's inside of the square root first. And that's going to give us 441. And so V is going to be equal to the square root of 441. The square root of 441 is definitely 21. And so that means that V is equal to 21. Moving right along, it says rearrange the formula to make A the subject of the formula. Currently, V is the subject of the formula. And so what we have to do is we have to remove the square root. And so in order to do that, we have to do the opposite of the square root, which is the square. We square both sides, all right? And so that means that the square root and the square, let me show it. It means that the square root and the square are going to cancel with each other. And so we are left with V squared is equal to 2AS plus U squared. We still want to make A the subject of the formula. So let's send the U squared over the equal sign. And so we have V squared minus U squared is equal to 2AS. We don't need the 2 on this side, and we definitely don't need the S on this side. And so we're going to divide both sides by 2S. And so we cancel. We are left with A on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, we have V squared minus U squared all over 2S. And so A is equal to V squared minus U squared all over 2S. Okay, let's move on to the next question. It says a formula for the conversion Sorry, a formula for conversion between temperatures is C, which is Celsius, equals to 5/9 times F minus 32, and the F stands for Fahrenheit. Calculate C when F is equal to 63.5, which means that we know that F is equal to 63. Sorry, we know that F is equal to 63.5. So that means that wherever we see F, we're going to put 63.5. And so F is equal to 63.5. Let's subtract. So we have 63.5 minus 32. That's going to be equal to 31.5. 31.5. And then we can multiply. What is 5 times 31.5? That's going to be 147.5. 147.5 all over 9. Let's divide 147.5 by 9. And so we get 17.5. And so the answer is that C is equal to 17.5 when F is equal to 63.5. All right, let's move on to the next question. It says, write F as the subject of the formula. So we have to rearrange this. And so what we're going to do here is that notice that we have C is equal to 5/9 times F minus 32. We wanna get rid of this fraction. So we can multiply both sides by 9/5. The reason why we use 9/5 is because notice that I don't want the 9. And so in order to get rid of the 9, I must multiply by another 9. And here I have 5 on top, so I need to multiply by 5 on the bottom. And so we cancel. And whatever you do to one side, you have to do another side. And so we cancel and cancel this 9, and we cancel and cancel the 5s. And so we are just left with F minus 32 on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, we have 9 times C, which is going to be 9C all over 5. Now we want F to be by itself, so we're just going to send the 32 over. It was a negative 32 when you send it, but when you send it over, it becomes a positive 32. So we have 9C all over 5 plus 32 is equal to F. So F is equal to 9C over 5 plus 32. And so that's F written as the subject of the formula. Okay, let's move on to this question. It says a formula for the area of a trapezium is A equals to H open bracket A plus B close bracket all over 2. So A is equal to H times A plus B all over 2. Now, so they want us to calculate A when H is equal to 6.3, A is equal to 8.4, and B is equal to 1.36. So the idea here is that wherever we see H, we're going to put 6.3. Wherever we see A, we're going to put 8.4. And wherever we see B, we're going to put 13.6. And let's do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add 8.4 plus 13.6 is definitely 22. Okay. And then let's multiply 6.3 times 22. 6.3 times 22 is 138.6. 138.6. And we divide all of that by 2. And so 138.6 divided by 2 is going to be 69.3. So A is equal to 69.3. That's the value of A when H is equal to 6.3, A is equal to 8.4, and B is equal to 13.6. The next question says, write B as the subject of the formula. So here we have A is equal to H times A plus B all over 2, but we want B to be the subject of the formula. And so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply H by, well, the first thing I did here was I tried to get rid of the 2. So I want to get rid of this 2. And so in order to get rid of the 2, what I did was I decided to multiply both sides by 2. All right. So if you multiply both sides by 2, so that's going to be 2 times A multiplied by 2. So these 2's will cancel with each other. And so we're going to be left with 2A equals to H open bracket A plus B. All right. And so what we can do here is we can multiply H by everything on the inside. So it's going to be H times A and H times B. That's what we call distribution. So H times A is going to be HA and H times B is going to be HB. Okay. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to, remember, we want to make B the subject. So we're going to send this HA on the other side because we don't want it on the same side as the B. So sending it over, we get that 2a minus HA. Why minus? Because remember, this is a positive. So when we send it over the equal sign, it becomes a negative HA. We divide both sides by H. The reason why we want to divide both sides by H is because I want to get rid of this H. And H is connected to the B by multiplication. To get rid of it, we have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And so we cancel. These two H's are canceled out. And so we have that B is equal to 2a minus HA all over H. And so that means that B is equal to 2a minus HA all over H. And so that is B written as the subject of the formula. Okay, let's move on to this next question. It says that given that V squared is equal to U squared minus 2AS, make U the subject of the formula. So notice here that currently V is the subject of the formula, or V squared is the subject of the formula. But we want to make U the subject of the formula. So U is here. So let's send the negative 2AS over the equal sign. So let's do that. And so we are left with V squared. This is negative 2AS. It was negative. So when we send it over the equal sign, it becomes a positive 2AS. And then we're going to divide. And then we have, notice that we want to make U the subject, right? Currently, U squared is the subject. But we don't want U squared. We want just U. So we're gonna take the square root of both sides, all right? That way we could eliminate the squared. And so let's do that. So it's gonna be these two canceling out. And so U is going to be equal to the square root of, U is going to be equal to the square root of V squared plus 2AS. And so U is going to be equal to the square root of V squared plus 2AS. And so that's what we're gonna be meaning by U. And so U is the subject of the formula. And so that's our answer for this one. Moving right along to the next question, it says that given that V squared equals to U squared minus 2AS, find the value of U, when V is equal to 15, A is equal to -2, and S is equal to 50. Notice that from this previous question, we already know what U is. U is equal to the square root of V squared plus 2AS. Again, U is equal to the square root of V squared plus 2AS. Wherever we see V, we're going to put 15. Wherever we see A, we're going to put -2. And wherever we see S, we're going to put 50. So V is equal to 15, A is equal to -2, and S is equal to 50. Next, we multiply 15 times 15 because 15 times 15 is 15 squared. So 15 squared is 225 or 225 minus, what is 2 times -2 times 50? So 2 times -2 times 50. That's going to be equal to 200, -200. And so we subtract 225 minus 200 is going to be equal to 25. So we have the square root of 25. So U is going to be equal to the square root of 25. What is the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is 5 because 5 times 5 is 25. And so that's the value of U when V is equal to 15, A is equal to -2, and S is equal to 50. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Here we have when A is equal to 6, B is equal to -2, and C is equal to 0, calculate the value of AC minus 4B. This is a substitution question, so what we have to do is wherever we see A, we're going to put 6. Wherever we see B, we're going to put -2. And wherever we see C, we're going to put 0. And so we have AC minus 4B. Remember, A is 6, all right? C is 0, all right? And then B is -2. 6 times 0 is definitely 0. And then -4 times -2 is going to be +8 because a negative times a negative is a positive. And so we have 0 plus 8, which is going to be equal to 8. Okay, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.